Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be watching another PBS Eons video. This one is how the Himalaya changed the world. Himalayas. Excuse me. I know people here in the U.S. people pronounce it Himalayas, but I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Himalayas, right? Let me know down below if I'm wrong or correct or whatever. It's Himalaya, right? I'm pretty sure. PBS Eons, you know what? They're an okay channel. I've enjoyed watching their videos in the past, reacting to their videos in the past, and this one, of course, is how the Himalayas changed the world. I'm just fascinated with this whole region, and you know what? I'm fascinated by the Himalayas as well. Um, Crash course, the Indian subcontinent smashed into the Eurasian continent, and the force of them crashing over the course of millennia caused the largest mountain range in the world to pop up, the highest mountain range in the world, right? The Himalayas, and it just became like this big natural border. And yeah, it's just really cool. Anyways, I'm rambling now, so why don't we why don't we watch the video and see what's up? If you want to watch the video, give them a like, give them a little watch, give them a little subscribe. The link to the video will be in the description down below. I put the link to every video that I react to in the descriptions of said reaction video. So I'd appreciate if you go and you know, give them a watch, give them a like as well. So yeah, we'll go ahead and start the video.
To climb Mount Everest, if you were to climb Mount Everest, you might find something remarkable in the rocks under your boots.
What?
Fossils from the bottom of an ocean.
Of course,
Beneath your feet would be tiny fragments of trilobites, crinoids, and other critters that lived in a shallow sea more than 400 million years ago.
What's really cool is I like the fact that like the North American subcontinent or the North American continent was also like divided in half by a shallow sea. And it was like in that shallow sea had some of like the most dangerous ocean creatures to ever exist as well. I don't know. I find like ancient history and archaeology. What is the research of fossils of ancient dead creatures called? I can't think of it. Oh well.
Vision period. And yet, today, this is the roof of the world, the highest point above sea level on Earth.
That's technically not true. There's technically a mountain in Colombia that if you measure from the center of the earth to the top of that mountain, it actually is further or it's closer to space than the top of Mount Everest.
Reveals just how dramatic the story of the Himalayas is.
She
As
said
one
Himalayas.
of the greatest geological features on the planet rose up.
Again, I don't know. I don't like what is the I'm pretty sure it's Himalaya, right? Himalaya. It's Himalaya, right? It's how you pronounce it, is Himalaya. Himalayas.
It reshaped the land in incredible ways. But the rise of these mountains affected more than just the immediate area. Turns out, we may have the Himalayas to thank for everything from the rise of giant flightless birds in Madagascar, to the disappearance of plants from Antarctica, to the expansion of great grasslands of North America, and more.
Yep. How? In North America? Interesting.
The story of the Himalayas starts in the Ordovician, around 485 million years ago. Back then, the area that would become Tibet in the Himalayas was part of the Paleotethys Ocean. The ecosystem was dominated by suspension feeders, with clam-like brachiopods and sea lilies snagging food from the passing current. Cephalopods and early jawless fish probably also swam nearby.
What is
that?
But
although this area
jawless fish, so they're just like filter feeders then?
Started as an ocean, it wouldn't stay that way. During the early Mesozoic era, the collision...
Man, just imagine... Okay, so when it was like a Pangea continent, right? When it was all a singular continent. Just imagine, like, the you how big of the other ocean is. Now, most of that ocean would probably be lifeless and dead and empty, right? Just because, if there's no land, nothing, typically sea life gravitates towards land either way. But just imagine how just a big and massive and empty that ocean is.
Of several small crustal fragments drove the lifting up of the land that's now Tibet, though exactly how that process unfolded is still debated. Then suddenly, or well, very, very gradually, depending on how you perceive geologic time, something appeared on the horizon. It was the Indian subcontinent drifting
It's
northward.
zooming.
As it
It's
came
zooming.
closer to the continental landmass, the geological forces pushed up what would become the Tibetan Plateau and Himalayas even higher. And by about 55 million years ago, in the Eocene epoch, the Indian and Eurasian plates collided for real. Of course, you can't just slam two continent-sized plates together without some significant local effects. Up
Okay.
until that point, the area that would become the Himalayas was dominated by tropical forests full of plants like fig and ironwood. Meanwhile, further north, Central Asia was already arid thanks to that Mesozoic uplift. By the Oligocene epoch,
I mean,
34
Central Asia is still just as arid, isn't it?
million years ago, the ecosystem of that drier region was made up of conifers and other
Oh, I
plants
see.
adapted to a shift to colder temperatures. And rodents and lagomorphs like rabbits and pika thrived there as they could digest the hardy,
Pika. I thought they were pronounced pika.
less nutritious plants. But as time went on, the rising mountains reshaped things, and not just in terms of pushing land higher in elevation, though that was a factor. While some kind of monsoonal system probably existed in the region before, as the mountains reached 4,000 meters, they began to form a large rain shadow. Rain shadows happen when moisture-laden winds coming in from the ocean are pushed up by the mountains. There, the air expands and cools, causing water to condense out as
Yep.
rain. The result was a massive amount of rain on the windward side of the mountains. And by the Miocene epoch, 23 million years ago, the monsoons were as strong as we see today. To the south, where the tropical fig-filled forest dominated, the rising elevation pushed the ecosystem into a new, colder climate. For some species, like plants suited to colder conditions and altitudes, including oaks, plums, and maples, this created a new corridor that they could spread into. But for others, this ecological breakup created new barriers, and these separations became even more distinct as the mountains rose higher.
Interesting.
Combined with the increasingly
I don't
numerous
really know too much about Tibet. This area right here, Tibet. Like geographically, I'm very unfamiliar with Tibet. But this is also completely changed once the Indian subcontinent started colliding with the Eurasian continent as well, right? Like this, most of these mountain ranges and stuff, like the whole topography is completely changed. Are these lakes formed by glaciers? That's what it kind of reminds me of, like glacier lakes. Because I would imagine during like the what is it, the younger Dryas ice age or whatever, this whole area was probably a giant glacier of some sort. Probably, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I don't know these things. I'm learning still, but I'm just speculating, like trying to imagine how these big lakes came to be.
more distinct as the mountains rose higher. Combined with the increasingly numerous rivers eating away at the rock and carving deep valleys between peaks, this breakup divided the landscape into different niches, like grasslands, tundra, montane forests, dry forests, and rainforests. And the plants and animals that live there, now isolated from their neighbors, began to diversify. This is especially evident in plants. The Himalayas today have over 4,000 endemic species of flowering plants.
Yeah.
But we also see this extreme diversification in animals too, like reptiles, amphibians, butterflies, fishes, and freshwater crabs. In the meantime, while the southern side of the mountains was being carved out by the monsoons, on the northern side of the plateau, the Himalayas and their massive rain shadow were further drying out Central Asia. This would soon give rise to great deserts like the Gobi,
The
along with
Gobi Desert's pretty
diversification in
cool.
some groups of desert-loving plants and animals, like the scorpions in the
I
Miocene.
like I, li-
Give it up.
I like a good desert. I'm not gonna lie. When it comes to deserts, I like the look. I like the feel. I don't so much. I don't think I'd enjoy like living in a desert. Mm, I don't know. Like I prefer I prefer deserts to like say or like I should say like warm hot deserts compared to like a tundra like a cold desert.
For the scorpions, I guess. So, the landscapes and ecosystems around the Himalayas were
Wow, that's
changing
crazy.
dramatically.
I didn't realize how
But
mountainous
if
all that
some
was.
scientists are right, the Himalayas might have been changing the rest of the world too. And to see how,
Yes,
we
tell
need
me how.
to rewind a little bit.
Tell me
Back
how.
in the Eocene, some 55 million years ago,
Okay.
much of the world enjoyed a warm, humid climate. But
Okay.
as time went on, that warm, wet world started to steadily cool down into the Miocene 23 million years ago. This global cooling could be linked to a decrease in carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere, which weakened the global greenhouse effect. And as
Okay.
for what caused the carbon dioxide levels to drop, that brings us back to the Himalayas. In the late
How though?
1980s, an environmental scientist teamed up with a planetary scientist to propose that this cooling could have been caused by the mountains and the monsoons. The idea is that all that newly exposed rock, lashed by those monsoon rains, may have supercharged a process called chemical weathering. Okay, here's how that works.
Yeah.
When raindrops form
I've
in the
not heard of
atmosphere,
this.
a small amount of carbon dioxide gets dissolved and trapped in those droplets.
Okay.
This turns the carbon dioxide into carbonic acid, making the entire raindrop slightly acidic. When these slightly acidic raindrops fall to Earth, the carbonic acid can chemically react with surfaces they touch, including rocks, which creates bicarbonate ions that wash out to sea. Once
Okay.
that happens, the ions are taken up by shelled organisms like diatoms that eventually die and fall to the sea floor. This puts carbon in a kind of long-term storage,
Oh, I
reducing
see. This is something that that people want to do to help with global warming. They want to suck up all of the excess CO2 from the atmosphere and create these giant like CO2 bricks and then like bury it somewhere. But the cost of actually running and maintaining those is so unfeasible from what I've looked into about it that it's almost like a net loss really when it comes to that production of like a CO2 sink. There's way better means and measures to combat global warming than that. The number one way would be to fully switch over to nuclear power. Nuclear. How do you pronounce nuclear? I know. I pronounce nuclear. I can't say it right, but yeah, nuclear power is probably just the best power. And people people get confused with nuclear power because but nuclear power is just simply using what it basically is. You're using this like this nuclear source, right? This like uranium source, plutonium source, whatever it may be, and it heats up water and it makes steam. So when it comes to like nuclear power, it's really just a giant steam plant, right? Got to go to that steampunk era with the nuclear.
atmospheric carbon dioxide overall. This process is usually balanced out by other factors, like carbon dioxide being emitted from erupting volcanoes. But the key is that it's a balance, one that the rising Himalayas may have upset. The vast amounts of newly exposed rock, combined with monsoons bringing in carbonic acid
That
to
makes
carve through them,
sense.
may
Okay.
have pushed carbon dioxide levels to new lows. Now, the exact details of this process and how much cooling we can lay at the feet of the Himalayas is still debated. But if this was the major source of the cooling, then that means the Himalayas affected not just the Asian landscape, but also some pretty distant ones. Take Antarctica, for example. By
Okay,
the
I'm
middle of
taking
the
it.
Miocene 14 million years ago, it was a relatively cool place with widespread glaciers and tundras like what you might find in northern Canada today.
Yep.
But the Miocene cooling helped kill off most of that vegetation as it put the continent on permanent deep freeze. Meanwhile, on the coasts of the northern
Wait. So you're telling me Antarctica is the way it is now because of the Himalayas? That's crazy to even think.
Pacific Ocean, that same cooling may have helped kelp diversify and spread into great offshore kelp forests. This formed a rich feeding ground for marine creatures like sea cows.
Okay.
And as things cooled down, they also dried out in many places. The late Miocene saw the birth of the Sahara Desert in Africa, for example. But one of the biggest transitions was the disappearance of tropical and
What? When did the Sahara Desert come up? I was pretty positive the Sahara Desert was a lot newer than that. Let me look this up. Interesting. It is 4.6, 5.3 to 2.6 million years ago. The antiquity of the Sahara Desert. Oh, but okay. So what I'm seeing here. Okay, it started more on the western side. Okay, and then it slowly grew from there. Okay, because my understanding is, or was it started? What's? Because my understanding, there's a large portion of the Sahara Desert, the Sahara Desert, was like green and lush, not even just 10 to 20,000 years ago. Oh, I see. Okay, so oh man, I don't have it pulled up over here, but I'm looking at this graph here. Um, it ebbs and flows. It ebbs and flows. So it expands and then it retracts, expands and then retracts, essentially throughout the history of the Sahara Desert.
subtropical forests. One of the biggest transitions was the disappearance of tropical and subtropical forests in parts of Africa, Europe, and North America, which probably
That's a
led to
monkey.
the extinction of the once diverse apes in Europe. Much of those forests were replaced by new grasslands like North America's Great Plains, the African savanna, and the Eurasian steppe. The grasses that dominate these ecosystems use C4 photosynthesis, a particular pathway that does better in low carbon dioxide conditions and arid environments than the alternative called C3 photosynthesis. Meanwhile, the colder temperatures and abundant grasslands may have enabled horses and paleonath birds like ostriches, emus, and the now extinct moas to grow bigger over time. So, in the end, the Himalayas didn't just shape the geography of Asia, but also potentially the path of evolution around
See,
the
I didn't know
world.
that. I didn't. That thought never occurred to me that the rain from the monsoon season going upon and hitting the Himalayas would capture CO2, and then when it would finally drain into the ocean, these shelled creatures would eat it, consume it, make their shells out of it, and then they would die and it would sink to the bottom. Thus, like a natural CO2 sponge. I don't know. That thought never occurred to me. That's kind of crazy, man. Isn't life great? Isn't everything just wonderful? I love it.
When we think of the Himalayas, we tend to think vertically. But as we've seen, their power also stretches out in other directions. It stretches far back in time as a landmass once home to everything from Ordovician sea critters to lush tropical fig-filled forests to modern yaks, snow leopards, and other animals adapted to the extreme cold and elevation.
The Yeti.
It reaches deep as the mountains created varied habitats and impassable rifts and barriers that have been both a haven and an engine for biodiversity. And it reaches wide, from the monsoons of Southeast Asia to the Gobi Desert, from the frozen ice sheets of Antarctica to the great grasslands of the Americas. The Himalayas may be big, but their effect on life on Earth may have been even bigger.
Interesting. That was really. Oh, what is this here at the end? I thought that was going to be the end of the video, but there's still 2 minutes left.
Before you go, we wanted to share that PBS Digital Studios just released our very first TV show. Our friends over
Oh.
at Terra just launched Weathered, Earth's Extremes on the
Okay.
PBS app and on PBS stations around the country. In it, Maya
Is
May and
PBS
the
free?
Weathered team travel around the world to tell the definitive story about our changing weather and climate and how a better future is within reach. This show is a must-watch for anybody who wants to understand where we stand in the fight against climate change. If you want to support PBS Digital Studios, head to the link in the description to watch the show on the PBS app. It's 100% free to
I was gonna
watch,
say, yeah.
along with a ton of other
I was gonna say, I'm reading an article here that says the PBS app is free, so I might check it out.
incredible series. Think of the PBS app as the people's streamer. It's one of the best spaces for documentaries from Nova, Frontline, and more, as well as episodes from our PBS Digital Studios friends like Be Smart, Crash Course, Monstrum, and yes, Eons too.
And we gotta elevate this month's Eontologists.
Addie and Eric Higgins, Carl Wolfel, Jake Hart, John Davidson Ing, Juan M.,
Are these,
Melanie Lem Carnevale, and Raphael Haas.
Members?
By becoming an Eonite at patreon.com/eons,
Patreon.
you can get fun perks like getting an Eons Paleo Art digital puzzle.
People want me to start a Patreon, but like I just don't know what I would put on Patreon to give to people that would sub.
And as always, thanks for joining me in the Ken Barnes studio. Subscribe at youtube.com/eons for more tectonic tales.
Tectonic Tales, guys. Tectonic Tales. This is a good video. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I enjoyed that fun little video, gathering some more knowledge for the brain to pull out at random intervals throughout my life. When will I use this information? Who knows? Who actually knows? But hey, guess what? It's stored up here now, and I can call upon it at a later date. So yeah, I think it's time to read some comments. First comment here. Where's my glasses? I can't see without my glasses. I am from Sikkim, a Himalaya state in India, and we recently found 1.5 billion year old stromatolite fossils here in Sikkim, right? Which further serves to prove that once this land was underwater of the Tethys Sea. Well, I mean, is there people that are doubting that? Wow, God, how these dang glasses. From someone who has lived in these sacred mountains, they are truly amazing. But because of the tectonic plates still pushing, earthquakes are very frequent. How frequent are earthquakes in India? I don't really hear about that from my friends from India, about earthquakes. I would imagine they're pretty rough, though. I don't understand, dude. I'm cleaning this with a microfiber, right? I don't know. I gotta get it like a cleaning solution, I guess, which I don't have any. Watching this from Himalayas. I'm an environmental microbiologist, but studied geology in undergrad and still do for fun. I just want to tell you that this video was excellent and your narrator was fantastic. I learned a lot here and truly enjoyed it. Thank you for the rare treat nowadays. Great content. I learned as well. I am not a environmental microbiologist and I never studied geology. I wish I did. I don't have any good diplomas. I don't have any diplomas, actually. So, the name Himalayas originates from the ancient Sanskrit language of India. The Sanskrit language Himalaya means abode of snow. I've been waiting for this since the India was an island episode. Tectonic Tales sounds like a great series. I live in the Himalayas. The power of nature is phenomenal. I guess it's like an old saying goes, it can't build a mountain range without breaking a few tectonic plates. Is that an old saying that I'm unfamiliar of? Thanks, PBS Eon team. PBS Eon's team. Lifelong learners will see this and just be like, hell yeah. I kind of said that, right? If the Himalayas hadn't been raised, there would be no Tibet for butterflies to flap their wings in, thus having such a significant effect on weather patterns around the world. What? I don't think I get it. All subduction zones on Earth have this characteristic. When Darwin walked on the Andes in South America, he found exactly the same remains beneath his shoes. I had no idea the Himalayas were once at the bottom of the ocean. Oh. Whales went from land to water around the same place. Imagine that. True. One way it put it in perspective of how immense Mount Everest is. When you see an airplane flying over a city, it's descent trajectory. Oh, it's in descent. He spelled it wrong. It's in descent trajectory, but at the maximum height of a flight, it is right above the peak of Everest. So think of how a plane in a city is, and far above would be Mount Everest. That's how big it is. Himalayas make grasslands. Does it mean Himalayas plays an indirect role in the origin of human? Oh, I did not mean to click the down button. I meant to click open. Well, a lot of things are connected. Everything plays a huge role. Everything plays a huge role. But maybe you know what? Like you could say that the Himalayas creating a cooler, temperate climate, thus making more grasslands in Africa, led to the rise of humanity. I would say that, sure. Origin of distinct culture might be more appropriate. Well, I mean that's in the distance. That's further along in the history of humankind. Great channel. Appreciate the work PBS done. Indian subcontinent jump scare. The rain shadow effect of the Himalayas on Eurasia made me think about something. Both North and South America have mountain ranges on the west coast and Cascades and Sierra Nevada on North America, and the Andes in South America. But this is the rain shadow of North American ranges are on the east side of the mountains, while the rain shadow on the Andes is on the west side of the mountains. It would make an interesting video to explain why the difference. The difference is the hemispheres, the way that the wind pattern blows. I would imagine. Simple case is wind patterns. Far south of South America, the Patagonia has east to west, west east winds, but the rest of the continent has winds off the southern Atlantic that blow westward, which is why the eastern slopes of Andes is lush and the western slope is arid. Yeah, like I said, it's just the way the wind patterns are, and the wind patterns are driven by a lot of variables. North and south hemisphere, the oceans in of themselves, stuff like that. Let me take a look. Let me take a look at some new comments. I just want to see. I want to glimpse. Take a little screenshot, a little snapshot of something current or more current. Are you really sure that the increased calcium input in the ocean would be enough to significantly lower atmospheric CO2 concentrations? How about the effect of cooling climate on the ocean atmosphere ratio of CO2? Would that not have a greater impact? I don't know. Why these clowns are the presenter of the show? Okay. From Pakistan, we love our Himalayas. Here, they start and go as high as K2. Is K2 in Pakistan? I thought K2 was in India. She pronounced the T in the mountains. I just subbed. Mountains? Do people not pronounce the T in mountains? How would you even say that? Mountains? Mounds? Mounds? Mountains. Of course you put the T on in mountains. The presenter styling looks ruined the aura of the content. Oh, wow. Okay. Himalaya, not Himalayas. It's him, right? Not him. Himalaya. I don't know. Let me know down below. I wish I would have lived. Geology is life. Sorry for the thumbs down, but too much to ads. I didn't see any ads. Susan Huntley 9262, but I do have YouTube Premium, so diversify. Everywhere I listen, the schwa sound is dying. American, we all sound like Canadians in 20 years. What? The schwa? What do you mean by schwa? Everywhere I listen, the schwa sound is dying. Diversify? It's diversify. What's both? Like diversify is like the more of the UK way of saying it, right? Diversify, diversify. I don't know. I don't know what schwa he's talking about either. Watching this from the Kashmir Himalayas. I'm from the Himalayas. Himalayas? If this southern oscillation can change global weather patterns, it's not such a stretch to assume the tallest mountain could not do the same. The hardest part is finding data to back up this assumption. I think she made this video as a distraction to make us forget how she is constantly trying to get these poor Dalmatians. You can't fool me, Corella. Never, never. Oh, man. Oh my god. What are you guys talking about? I think she looks cute. What? These people are hating on her. That's crazy. I don't know. I don't know. People are hating on her. I think she looks cute. Um Okay. Well, that's it for the video. Thank you for watching, everybody. I'll catch you on the next one. Yeah. Take care. Goodbye.